In my own dojo.
A modern podcast where Chris and Mike talk about TV, movies, superheroes, and everything in between. It's time for Superhero Slate.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name's Chris Dillard.
And my name's Mike Royer.
And this is a spoiler cast for Netflix and Marvel's Iron Fist.
Iron Fist. It is finally out. It is, I guess, the last movie until the first phase of the Netflix universe is completed. I believe they're kind of organizing these into phases, just kind of like they did the Avengers movies in the cinematic universe. So Iron Fist is, I guess, the last one out of the gate. So it's done. We watched it. A lot of the reviews out there that you're going to see are people reviewing just specifically the first 6 episodes because that's kind of what the early release embargoes are wrapped around. But over here at Superhero Slate, we like to watch the entire thing. We like to actually give the listeners out there a chance to watch it all. So we wait about a week so we can just dive into it. And I believe you literally just finished watching this, right?
I did. I wrapped up about 30 minutes ago. And this is the first time I had to crunch through 5 hours of it this morning. So I woke up and just plowed right through it. Yeah. And just to clarify that a little bit, Defenders is technically the end of phase 1 of their Netflix, because that was included in the original announcement. But of the standalone shows, yes, this is the first.
Yes, the Defenders will be the punctuation mark, if you will. And if you're not too familiar with how we do things around here, this is a spoiler cast, so there will indeed be spoilers, as Chris says. So, don't be surprised. But so we're here to talk about Iron Fist, all the spoilers. And usually, like we do every week, we're recording a news episode as well. And usually we kind of save the spoiler cast until after we talk about the news. And if you're subscribed to our feed, you'll get that as well. But I think we're both just really waiting to talk about this. We've been really radio silenced between the two of us, trying not to give away our hand, if you will.
Oh, God. So soon? Are we? Yes. How many minutes into this are we? Come on.
So soon. So usually, like we're already like an hour into talking with each other before we kind of jump into these spoiler casts. But I told you specifically not long ago that I was like, I want to talk about this first. I've been holding it close to my chest for too long, and we really need to get into Iron Fist.
Yes, we do. Mostly because, I mean, this has been a week of not just this, of other things, but like. I used this to describe it last night, and I don't know if this is too soon to say it, Mike, but I felt like someone was dragging me through hot coals watching this show.
Oh, yeah. It was not easy to make it through this season and through the week. I mean, so many times I looked over at my wife and I was just like, okay, do you just want to finish this already? We got 2 episodes left. I mean, this is the polar opposite of types of show, but this weekend, a new season of Grace and Frankie came out, which is just about 2 old ladies and 2 old gay guys, and we were just like, can we finish Iron Fist so we can go ahead and watch these old people do funny old people stuff? So I think that just goes to show you how hard it is to make it through this.
It very much is, and it actually reminded me of whenever I watched the first 2 seasons of Arrow, because I came in late to the show. I wasn't on board with it from the beginning, and there are a lot of parallels between Iron Fist and the first season of Arrow. I felt like, and mostly rich white guys coming back from disappearing for several years and automatically knowing how to fight people. I think there was one time Danny was in the rain and he looked just like Oliver in all the flashbacks. But I have to say, I cranked out, I think, 5 episodes today. Actually felt much better than the first half of the show. I think the first half, maybe up to episode 8, or maybe 7 or 8 even, were the hardest to watch. But once it hit that 8 or 9 mark, That is what the show should have been.
I like how you're just like, those first 2/3 of this season, pretty unbearable. Hey, but if you can hold out until the last couple episodes, you might kind of enjoy yourself.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not saying anybody should, but like, I'm sure there's a good what I'm going to call a machete order, where you can cut up this season into like the parts that matter and the parts that don't matter, and cut out all that corporate espionage bullshit that nobody cares about. And honestly, I feel like this show was written, the first half was written by one person and the second by another, because the first half, Danny had different powers. Like, the more he got hit, the more he could use the Iron Fist, but later on, the more he got hit, the more he couldn't use the Iron Fist.
Yeah.
I don't know what was happening.
Yeah, I think that really just goes into the sloppiness of the show in general. And I think that kind of brings me around to, I guess, the first topic I want to talk about here with Iron Fist is specifically the fighting. So if you listen to us often and you hear us talking about Iron Fist back in the past, I know at least I was, and I believe you were too, really excited for the fighting coming up in this show, because we were like, all right, this is going to be like our first, like, kung fu superhero, we've really seen on the screen. That we were really looking forward to the fighting. I mean, we saw the fighting in Daredevil, and he was just kind of more of like a street level brawler, and that was awesome. There was actually iconic, like, I wouldn't say necessarily history making stuff, but I mean, everybody remembers that hallway fight from episode 3. Everyone was raving about how awesome the fighting was in Daredevil. So when we finally get to the fight scenes in Iron Fist, they are just garbage. They are just pointless, and you don't even need to watch them. And I think it's funny that you make the Arrow comparison, because it's just like the fight scenes that you see in Arrow, which is on the lowest level CW budget, for that kind of action. Stuff just starts happening on the screen. You can just look away. Nothing entertaining is happening. It's not moving the plot along. It's just there to fill out the episode. It's just like they cut away from all the hits. There's just nothing there to watch. There's just random, like, misty flips in the air that don't do anything. It's just worthless, and which is just really sad for a show that's supposed to be about kung fu Iron Fist masters. And I don't know, what did you think about the fight scenes in the show?
The fight scenes, I'm walking away with two things from the fight scenes. One, and Brian from Comic UI agrees with me, the best fight scene is the Drunken Master fight scene.
Yeah, because it had personality to it.
It did. And there was a purpose. He had to beat him to get through the building. Okay, so there was that. But the Kung Fu in this, it feels more like what I would call, like, this is what you would learn in real life Kung Fu classes. And not the Kung Fu of, like, the Asian exploitation era Kung Fu, where, like, Jackie Chan era, Bruce Lee era, where, like, it's choppier, and, I don't know, it wasn't TV Kung Fu we saw. It felt like we were watching real life Kung Fu, which is not very cool to watch. Like, this is a TV show. They should have spiced it up a little bit, made it extravagant, because he's in a mystical land fighting people who come back from the dead with his glowing hand. Spice it up a little bit for us. Come on. There's only so much fake cocaine we can deal with throughout an episode.
It was heroin, okay, not cocaine.
I don't care. I needed some by the end of it, Mike, to get through this show.
Yeah. And I think it's funny that you bring it up, the specifics between the heroin and cocaine. So this is I think the first time we've done a spoiler cast where beforehand I have taken extensive notes, just because there was so much going on in this show that really upset me that I needed to write it down so I didn't forget. And one of them was specifically like, who cares about the heroin? No one cares about this plot point. Why do we keep coming back to it? Why did Ward need to get addicted to it? It was just, it didn't make any sense. The heroin made a lot of sense in Daredevil, because Daredevil's a very grounded show in Hell's Kitchen. He very much cares about his neighborhood and the people in there. So when heroin enters his streets, he gets really pissed off, and it makes sense. But Danny's worried about Rand and this corporate enterprise and his family. Like, he doesn't care about the heroin, and honestly, you can't even really care about any of the characters in this show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very hard to, because they go so back and forth between what they are. At best, the some of the dialogue is daytime soap opera. I mean, like, and then at worst, you know, it's this kind of campy corporate stuff that you tune out and you didn't miss anything for half an hour because they're talking about, you know, buying this dock down the in some part of the city. And I think that's where the cocaine comes in. But I mean, they don't need to spend 3 episodes on buying this dock because that's where the cocaine's being built.
Exactly.
I think they took a lot and stretched it so thin that it was just all filler. Like there was no meat to this. It's like making a sandwich and putting a thin slice of turkey in the middle, Mike, and nothing else on it.
Yeah, we needed a little bit more bulk there. But yeah, I mean, it was really rough. One thing that I really wanted to enjoy about this show was I wanted to enjoy a little bit more New York. The whole point of this Defenders, all of these characters, is that they're all going to be grounded in New York, and it was all going to be filmed there. They had this whole press conference before they even started production on these shows, where they announced that this was all going to happen in New York, and it was going to be great. It's going to be awesome. That's basically, I think that wasn't the mayor there or something. There was some sort of representative for New York City at this press conference. It was
a big deal because Marvel's filming all the shows in New York. They're bringing jobs to New York, and all this stuff. So
yeah, and we had and obviously I'm sure people in New York will tell us very different because Hell's Kitchen is actually very, very small. You know, they make it seem very big in the show, but I like that. I like the personality we got from Hell's Kitchen and Daredevil and Matt Murdock trying to protect his city. The Kingpin was very much grounded in Hell's Kitchen. It just, you got a sense of the world that you were in there. And even though we didn't like the back half of Luke Cage, at least Harlem actually felt like a location. Like you really felt the neighborhood there. You got to know everything that was going on in that area. Jessica Jones, not so much, but it definitely did feel more grounded because it was dealing more with people, not with corporate enterprise. With Danny Rand and Rand Industries, who cares? I don't even know where it is in New York City. Is it like down by the World Trade Center? Is it over like, somewhere else? I don't know the geography of New York very well, and they didn't do a very good job letting me know where it is. It would have been kind of cool maybe if they threw in a nod to being able to see Avengers Tower from there. At least give me some sort of location. It was just kind of like a faceless building. It kind of seemed like they were going to make Rand Tower kind of the neighborhood, but it was boring as hell.
Yeah, so I think the show, and this is something I was explaining earlier to someone, was the pacing in the show is terrible. And it's mostly because of the first half of the show is just, someone's battling drug addiction and the other people are dealing with them trying not to be kicked out of the company with their name on it, right? The real revelation and everything comes down to the final episode. We get Harold Meacham back from the dead for a day. Or one whole episode. He was back from the quote unquote the dead for a whole day.
Yeah,
in the
out
land
in
of
public.
the living.
Yeah, out in public or whatever. Yeah.
And that's where that's the episode where he figures out that his parents were really killed by Harold Meacham. All this reveal came in the very last episode. Well, you have 13 episodes. You got to space this out appropriately to get people intrigued in the story moving along. And for it to all come down to the last episode, highly disappointing.
And guess what we didn't see in that final episode? I felt like they were building it up the whole season. We didn't get to see Kunlun, and not only that. Not only do we not get to see that, we didn't get to see that dragon. I mean, come on. Like, we've just got an entire blockbuster, like, multi-million dollar budget movie of Doctor Strange where they just took the whole Marvel Universe and plunged it in the mysticism. And then when we finally get it on Netflix, we can't even get, like, a decent look at the dragon for like at least a second. We just get red glowing eyes. I mean, that really felt like some bullshit to me because I mean, that's the coolest part of Iron Fist. That's the coolest thing. He defeats this dragon to get the power of the Iron Fist. And I didn't need to see the full fight. I didn't need them to blow their whole budget on a CGI dragon fight. But I mean, come on, at least you just give us a cool shot of it for a second or something. I mean, we didn't get anything, and then we also didn't get any of Kunlun. So it's just like, how are we supposed to care about the mystical place? How are we supposed to care about Danny when we never see any of that? We never see any of it. So how are we supposed to connect with any of it?
Oh, exactly. And it all comes down, and most of that does come to the last episode, so you don't care. Like, I mean, it feels like, like the middle might have been maybe the filler, because Danny has like all these like angry flashbacks to the stuff, and then they drop that whole plot point forever, and then at the end he gets them again. The pacing and how they just released this information to the audience was horrible, and I felt like if this was the first entry into the Marvel Netflix universe, there wouldn't be any more. Or at least, like they'd have a very strong uphill battle. But they've delivered such great shows beforehand that also may be hurting this. We may be spoiled on great shows.
I did. I mean, I saw a little bit of notion that would kind of back that up, where someone was saying, we did get spoiled very early on because Daredevil and Jessica Jones are great shows. And then a show like Luke Cage comes along, which I would say is a good it's a good show. Kind of when you average it out, it's good. So and then when you get to Iron Fist, I mean, honestly, I think when we talked about the our first initial impressions on the show last week, I said that this might fit pretty well on the CW, which is not good when you're considering the prestige of that Netflix is building up.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, if you compare this to what's on TV right now, it's okay. When you compare it to the Netflix series it's around it, it's pretty bad. And it's just kind of disappointing because we had so much hope for it. When they announced the Defenders, my least favorite character of that was Jessica Jones. I'm like, that shows it can't be any good. Well, now Jessica Jones is up there. Like, it and Daredevil pretty par for the course. Yeah. And Iron Fist is the lowest. And I was like, oh man, what has happened here? And after watching that last episode and like I felt this last 5 hours was good, like much better than the first half, because I could watch the next one without having to step away and watch something else and come back. Because that's how I watch the other ones. I watch one, I'm like, okay, that's enough. I can feel every minute the show was on. I need to go somewhere else. Come back, and then the last 5 were better, but they still like getting there.
It's nowhere redeeming it.
Nowhere close. And you still leave on. I think this is the only one that left on such a huge cliffhanger.
Yeah, and talk about a shitty cliffhanger too. So
literally on a cliff. How?
Yeah, like I get that these shows need to be their own, and they don't necessarily have to segue into the next season or to the next event or whatever like that. I'm not expecting like an after credit scene for the last episode, kind of fishtailing into their next show. But I was hoping maybe for a little something. I mean, if this is our last show until we get the Defenders, I was kind of hoping they would get the ball rolling at least a little bit in the last minute or two, because we've had that similar in the movie universe. Like, wasn't Captain America the first Avenger the last movie until the Avengers?
Yeah,
and we had
and it gave us a trailer.
Yeah, so I mean, I didn't necessarily need a trailer, but I mean, give me a little something. I mean, I thought maybe we might get a little bit of a reveal of maybe the origin of Sigourney Weaver's character, since she's supposed to be the villain in the Defenders. And I realized during the show is they never talked about the Meachums. They never talked about the mother of the family. It was always the father and kid dynamic. So, and I don't believe they said if she died. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if they've ever mentioned her. I didn't really go back and look it over. But I was just like, oh, what if the mom is Sigourney Weaver or something like that? Like, that could be clever, but then at the same time, like, I don't really want the Defenders to tie in to Iron Fist at all. Like, I'm really hoping that the showrunners for Daredevil Season 2 can come into the Defenders and fix Iron Fist. I really hope they can, but I think that kind of fishtails into something that I really want to talk about is the characters. And at the very top of the list, we have Finn Jones as Danny Rand, and I am just so disappointed. So I'm really hesitant to say this because, I have no idea what it's like to act. I am a really poor judge of character when it comes to acting, and I think even a bad actor could fool me that they're good, so I should never work in like a casting department or anything like that. but I do not think Finn Jones is doing a good job in this show at all. Like, I don't know if it's the lines that were written for him. I don't know if it was how he was directed on screen, or I don't know if maybe he's just legitimately not a good actor. But that portrayal of Iron Fist on the screen was just garbage.
See, I can't blame him. I think it's the writers and the directors in this, because nothing felt natural from anybody really at any point in time. The only character I thought I was going to be interested in for a while was Harold Meacham, but they kind of gave him a 180 as well. Like later, he seemed like a very different character at the end, and that's part of the process of dying and coming back to life. But they did that so late in the game. Like I think he would have been cooler to see more of. But Finn Jones, I can't blame him. I think I feel it's a series as a whole.
Well, and that's why I kind of wanted to refrain from it. When it comes to like a show with so many parts moving, you don't really know where to place the blame. So I don't necessarily want to put it all on his shoulders necessarily. I mean, it's not like he had a whole lot of time to prove anything to me like on Game of Thrones, because I don't really remember his character that much on that show, so I don't really have much to go off of. But his character is just so sad and mopey and just uninteresting and totally unlikable through the whole show. It seemed like they were trying to do this arc of his character where he kind of starts as an immature, childish kid and kind of grows up into an adult by the end of the show. But that really never comes to fruition for me. And just the whole time, he's just annoying and unlikable. He has these really dumb proverbs that he sticks into every conversations, kind of like, oh, Confucius say type things, and it's just really stupid. So he's not talking like a real person. And one could say like, oh, well, he grew up in a monastery since he was a kid, of course he's not going to act right. But we never got to see any of that monastery stuff. We never got to see what it was like to be in Kunlun. So how am I supposed to know how he's supposed to be?
Well, so I think your problem is how they portrayed Iron Fist / Danny Rand was a very poor portrayal. Like, he didn't have much strength in him. He was very anger. Like, he's full of anger. And I thought that was going to go somewhere, because Harold was he would get angry and then say, I'm sorry. And then the Iron Fist was like, I'm angry. Oh, I'm sorry. I did that kind of thing. Like, there was a lot of people saying, I'm sorry.
Yeah. He never felt like a loose cannon or anything like that. And, at one point, I was trying to figure out, is Danny mentally ill? Because there was, I think, the one point in the show where I just kind of lost all faith was episode 6, which I guess was the one that RZA directed. So I don't know if I'm supposed to be blaming RZA. Maybe he shouldn't be directing stuff. But that fight with that weird spider lady and that tournament thing was just downright one of the worst things I have ever watched in a superhero property. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it was like a superhero web series, like a low-budget TV show, maybe a higher-budget TV show, or a movie. It was just laughable. Starting from like the weird set decoration of the torn sheets just kind of all around, to the vibe of just like, there's nothing at stake here. I felt like Danny could just walk out at any given time. I didn't really care about that chemist's daughter or whatever. It seemed like he could have just walked out of there, because he's never really portrayed himself as a hero. So I didn't really feel like he was like driving to be that. And then this character is just dressed up as this weird kind of like I don't really know, like she's like some sort of like bizarre like maitre d' at some sort of themed restaurant, like that has to do with like Middle Eastern or like Eastern stuff. And then it's so ham-fisted where it's just like, oh, let's put a spider on her back. It felt like they were like, okay, we have this comic book villain that does like poison, and she like does stuff with spiders and stuff like that. So
they actually took her image directly from the comics. She's
which
the
is
Bride
not
of Nine Spiders, and that's exactly how she looked, which did not translate well at all.
Yeah, it doesn't translate at all. I mean, if they're going to go ahead and just lift from the comic book, at least lift Danny's costume from the comic book, because I saw a very good idea online where it said if Danny was in a costume and a mask the whole time, they could have thrown Finn Jones out during the fighting scenes and actually hired someone that knew how to fight, and it would have been entertaining. But that moment with that fight with that Spider Woman was just cringy, and I just couldn't watch it. I was laughing the whole time. It was so stupid. And if you even analyze the whole fight in general, it just ends with like somehow Danny getting over the poison. And I believe this was before we learned Danny could heal things with his chi fist or whatever. So like the whole fight, he's getting stuck with this poison, and he's slowly like working himself down, and he can barely move, and he's getting like slapped and kicked in the face by the Spider-Woman. And all of a sudden he just rallies and punches her, and then goes on to the next fight where he is totally fine and not poisoned anymore. It was just totally ludicrous and kind of indicative of how messed up the show was in general. And I just I had to write that down as a note, and I had to bring it up. I know it's a specific moment in the show, but I think it's where they just totally lost me. And the thing is, I knew I was watching episode 6. This was the last episode that the reviewers got, so I was just like, they felt like episode 1 through 6 was going to be a good way for these critics out there to review the show, and they specifically wanted to end that, I guess, on a bang. And they ended it on this weird tournament that had these really loose rules to it, and somehow we were just going to trust that Gal was going to follow through with it, and there's going to be some sort of honor among thieves or something. I don't know, man.
Like I said, the first half is very rough, and again, most of the reviews online are on this first half. Once again, I think much later, once you get if you're gonna watch it and you're gonna get to it, the end is better than the beginning. So there's, you at least have that to look forward to. But the first ones are pretty rough, and it just feels so disjointed. Like I said earlier, all along the path, that someone wrote the first half of the show or had an idea for the first half. And they're like, guess what? Well, we can't do that. So let's write the second half differently. And then, oh shit, we're out of episodes. Let's wrap this up, everything in a nice little bow in one episode at the end.
Yeah.
So you just didn't care for anybody. There wasn't really anyone there to latch onto and go with. And
yeah. So there's kind of two more characters that I specifically wanted to bring up, and I really wanted to ask you how you felt about Claire's role, night nurse in this season in general, kind of, and also maybe her broader arc in the show, because she's kind of more of a staple in this show. So what did you think about Claire in Iron Fist?
I actually think she was okay. To be honest, because I'm more excited for her future and her arc than where she is usually at any given point in the show. I honestly like her the least in the Daredevil episodes than I do later on. Mostly because we got her like such a great version of her in Luke Cage, and this is obviously that version carried over, and to see that continue and then work with Iron Fist, who hopefully going forward is a Luke Cage, a Power Man, Iron Fist show rather than just one of each. And I think she would fit great in that universe a little better, but she's trying to better herself and be part of this rather than just being always the damsel in distress, as you will. That she kind of was I guess in the first one or two.
Yeah, I mean, I do like how she's kind of taking this arc throughout the shows, but I think this is one problem all the Netflix shows have kind of had, but since all the other Netflix shows have been good, we've kind of overlooked it. Whereas Claire's kind of always felt shoehorned into these characters' plots. It's always just kind of a coincidence that she ends up in their storyline. But I've always kind of just let that go, because they always kind of say, every story is kind of allowed one coincidence, and you can kind of let that go. So I was just like, okay, Claire just gets like mixed up in all these people's lives. It's all right. But in a show with so many flaws as Iron Fist, it doesn't help Claire, I think, in any means. Where literally, when I say shoehorned, she invited herself into that dinner that Danny brought over for Colleen, which I was just like, that seemed really out of character for her. Usually she's kind of respectful and sassy and smart, and she's just, basically at the gym with her personal trainer, and she doesn't know, like, some famous guy brings her in food, and she's just like, oh, can I sit down and eat with you guys?
I think you missed that entirely, because the Colleen was says no, and Danny was insisting. So it was like one of those, like, I'm going to sit here with you in case he tries to, like, rape you or something. It wasn't like she was like, oh, I want to be a part of this world. That was like, oh, you're awkward, I need to save you kind of deal.
Yeah, I don't know. But I mean,
I think
I think I'm hoping, since she'll finally get to kind of bring all these people kind of together, Nick Fury style, into Defenders, all of that kind of shoehornness will kind of go away, because now she's kind of a staple part of them, so it makes sense that she's around. So I feel like we're kind of almost over that threshold, I guess, at least for me. I know I think with Claire, things are a little bit better. It's kind of one of the more of the highlights of the show, so I think people will have a little bit more mixed opinions, but I'm definitely looking forward to the Defenders with her, because I like how she's kind of grown. I wish they maybe would have done a better job organically, I guess, raising her skill level throughout this show, because all of a sudden she goes from, I guess, just training with Colleen every once in a while to being able to fight the hand. That didn't really feel like a smooth transition to me, but
well, you know, I don't know. We don't. Again, my thing is, we don't know how long these shows take in between each other. So I don't know how. We don't know how long between Luke Cage and this was. Sadly, I assume it's real time. So, but I get what you're saying. I mean, it doesn't excuse anything. I just she's my least favorite Claire things are when she's in Daredevil, but her, like, when someone comes across her, it feels natural to the story. Like, she was a nurse, and they brought in, you know, a super powered person, and that's kind of how she met Jessica Jones and Luke Cage. And then she, because of Luke Cage, she had to learn to defend herself, and brought her into this. I didn't have a problem with her. I mean, I think maybe she was a little too much in it. Maybe that might be it. Take her out of one of those episodes, because she was in a lot towards the end there.
Yeah, you know what? I think we could probably just go ahead and take out that entire episode where they supposedly go to China, which kind of just looks like a factory in Jersey that they threw some Chinese signs up on, and maybe just put the Drunken Master fight, which was kind of all right, maybe somewhere else, because that whole China trip was just totally pointless.
Well, I totally blocked that part out. So yeah, someone was like, "Oh, they went to China." I'm like, "No, they didn't. They just went down to the piers in New York." What are you talking about?
Well, Chris, they had to go to China because they have to put Danny Rand, the Iron Fist, a kung fu master who knows how to fight and has probably killed people before with his kung fu and Iron Fist, you know, back in Kunlun. They had to put him on a plane so they could show him being a cryy sissy baby who's still scared of flying around in planes. You know, we got to get that other side of Iron Fist. We got to get him in a plane somehow.
Wait, they had flashbacks to his younger life, just like Arrow, every couple minutes?
Yeah, I think about 5 or 6 times in the first episode.
At least. I mean, I thought they were going to repeat that every episode with that plane opening up like a can of sardines. Like, I was like, if they do this 3 episodes in a row, like, I'm out. Like, I couldn't do it. So
it just becomes comical at that point, because every time the mom flies out of the top of the plane, I just keep going, "See ya," because we've seen it so many times. So, okay, so we're really trashing this show, and I would like to continue trashing this show, because there's one glaring flaw that I really want to bring up. But first, there is actually one shining light in this show that I actually legitimately loved, and I would like to share that with you, Chris.
I can't really say no, so go on.
My favorite part of this show, and it's actually something that grows throughout and actually becomes enjoyable to watch, is Ward Meacham's character, the son of the brother sister father dynamic. If you don't quite remember the names, because I'm sure some people probably zoned out, but he's played by a guy named Tom Pelphrey. I legitimately thought he was the shining light in this show. He was the best actor out there. He kind of did a little bit of a Ewan McGregor thing to me as an Obi-Wan. He somehow just peered past the writing, peered past the direction, and ended up doing his own thing. And he actually was kind of like lighting up the scenes that he was in. Like when he got mad and angry, like it actually, like, I actually felt it. So I think at the best I think that could come out of this show is that maybe he gets elevated in his career more. He pops up in some more shows, because I actually really loved his character, which I didn't think I was going to like anything in this show after episode 6.
He didn't die, so that's a plus. So he has the opportunity to come back. At any given point in the last 2 episodes, I'm like, he could die. Like he was gonna die, but he didn't, so that's good. I think one of my favorite characters actually shown through was Davos, his brother from Kunlun that came to get him. So he just kind of popped up out of nowhere, and I'm like, why does this guy seem familiar? He was in an episode of Sherlock this year. That's why I knew him as an actor.
Oh yeah, he was. Yeah, and that's the only episode of this season of Sherlock that I had seen. He's like at the end of the first episode, right?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, and I was like, why does he look familiar? Like, did I miss something? Did I miss a whole episode where this guy just popped up out of nowhere. Well, no, they just never told us until later.
Yeah.
But I actually enjoyed him as a character with Danny going throughout and helping him fight throughout all this stuff.
Well, and I think we liked Davos because he's one of the few characters in the show that has very clear motivations. He's shown up from Kunlun. It's obvious that he's trying to find Danny and bring Danny back, and that's exactly 100% what he wants to do. And when he comes across any hand along the way, he's gonna want to kill them. So I think we just knew exactly what he wanted, so it was easy kind of to get invested in him. Except for that part where he was making foil ninja stars. Because, I mean, come on. I don't care how magical kung fu master you are. You're not going to throw foil into the side of a food truck and stick.
Oh, I thought they were real ninja stars. So, yeah. See, I spaced out on a lot of this while I was watching.
No, he was like origamiing them into a thing. And he threw it into the thing. It's like, oh, my God. This show is just not grounding itself in anything.
No, but I think his arc, now be it, like, short and at the end of the show, going to turn to Madame Gao and the other Meacham, Joy, to go against Danny and get the Iron Fist actually kind of felt natural. Like, it was a good arc for him because he's like, I just want to be the Iron Fist, pretty much. And I was chosen. So it fits the comic books because on him, he wears the symbol of the drugs. The dragon, or like the dragon without wings on his chest. So, or I guess a snake or whatever, and he looks like Iron Fist, but he's called Steel Serpent in the comics. Is what I was going to. I liked him. That was one of my characters I kind of latched onto there at the end, mostly because it wasn't as bad as the rest of it. So.
Oh, that's so sad. It's not as bad as the rest of it, but
it's not as bad as the rest of it.
I think I have. Identified the biggest sin of this show, something that I think, I was always hoping that, hopefully we can take Iron Fist out of the show, put him in the Defenders and fix him. But I think the show has actually broken the Netflix universe, and I'm not 100% sure if it can get fixed because they have absolutely ruined the terrifying image of the Hand, and it's almost irreversible. Like, so this show kind of decided to like elevate the Hand and bring them more out of the shadows and reveal some of their secrets, and I don't think we still know everything about the Hand, but I guess we started to find out that there's different factions. I guess Gao was a faction of the Hand. That one dude with the curly hair that showed up, what was his name?
Is it
Bravos or something?
Bakuto.
Yeah, Bakuto. So he kind of had like a cultish faction. So they went ahead and they started muddling the definition of the Hand. But now the Hand seems like they could be literally just about anybody. Like, we had a very clear definition of what the Hand was from Daredevil and from the way Stick was explaining them. They were basically super deadly ninjas that couldn't die. They were literally always dressed as ninjas. They were like experts with bows and swords and other awesome weapons and stuff like that. And they could literally appear out of the shadows. They didn't make noise. Like, Daredevil literally couldn't find them until he started listening to their heartbeats because they were that deadly, and they were swarming them, and you had someone like Stick and Daredevil and Elektra that had to flee from them. Like, they literally couldn't stick around and fight anymore. They had to get out of there or they would die. And so they did an awesome job in Daredevil making the Hand seem very, very almost unbeatable to a point. And then you get to this show, and the Hand, I guess, can be literally anybody. It can just be like some thugs out on the street, somebody at a karaoke bar that kills some people with a sword. I think maybe the people with hatchets. No, the hatchet gang was different. It's kind of hard and confusing to keep track of what the Hand is. And I guess the Hand can just be people that graduate from a lesson at a dojo class. I guess Colleen can promote people to the Hand. So it just made no sense who the Hand actually was. It seemed like some people could kill Hand very easily. It seemed like some people could barely kill the Hand. I don't remember if the guy burning the medical records was Hand. I don't think
he was because Ward didn't know about the hand until much later.
Yeah, that's right. But that's a whole different point because that dude was just a normal dude with brass knuckles, and Danny could barely fight him at all, which made no sense. So this show has basically effectively ruined the hand. I don't really... They tried to clear up a little bit of definitions of it, but it seems like there's different factions, so I can't keep track of even what is pure hand anymore and what isn't. Stick was a guy that seemed very adamant about, defeating the hand, but they don't seem to be the same type of people anymore. So the whole time I was thinking, what would Stick say about this situation right now? What would Stick be doing? Madame Gao was kind of like this mysterious person that had some sort of weird power or ability to flick people with her hand across the room, and all of a sudden her powers just kind of got nerfed at some point, and I guess she can kind of read minds, I think. I don't really know what's going on there. I don't know if maybe she's just also a master manipulator, but they just made everything more convoluted. They made the hand less scary, and I believe the hand is probably going to be the main baddie in the Defenders, and now I'm not scared of them anymore. So I am so mad that they did that to these people that I thought were super cool in the last season of Daredevil, and now they're just like dumb, stupid thugs that I guess just want to sling heroin, and I guess some of them kind of want to topple corporations like it's Fight Club or something. It's just stupid. I thought they were literally trying to take over the world and take over the city of New York and destroy everybody because there was mysterious giant holes in the earth that they didn't know how far down it went, and there was these weird sarcophaguses that brought people back to life. It was all very ambiguous and subtle. That's what I like about all these other Netflix shows, is they're subtle. There's no subtlety anywhere on this show. Everything is at face value. Everybody says exactly what they're feeling and thinking. And that just kind of brings it back around, man. I don't know. What did you feel about the hand?
So to me, this is actually the hand in the comic books. And if you've not read that, then I totally get where you're coming from. But the hand there's a lot more convolutedness to the hand, and I think a lot of people believe that the series, the Netflix shows, are heading to a comic book series called Shadowland, where Daredevil takes over the hand at a certain point. So maybe at the end of whatever the next series is, Daredevil takes over the hand, but the hand has always been split up. Bakuto is in the comic books. He is a leader of the South American branch of the hand normally. They have different groups on the different continents. There are splinter groups like the Snake Root clan, which I don't know if anyone from the Snake Root clan was in this one, but there are different. It's a very hierarchical. But now it kind of is mixed with hand is kind of like Hydra almost in the Marvel universe, because anyone could be the hand and anyone could have been Hydra. All they got to do is say their secret words, and they come out.
Yeah, I mean, and they just did a very poor job explaining all of that. Then, I mean, you did a pretty good job just right there, telling me that there's different factions and whatever. But throughout this entire series of the Netflix universe, they've never explained that there's different factions of hand. They've literally just said those two words, the hand, like they're just one body organization. And even when Stick talked about them, about their past and what their motivations were, he never brought up splinter groups and stuff like that, and there's a South American group. Oh man. Yeah. So
again, who knows how they're going to adapt that for the Netflix series. But I mean, I the fact that they are offering hey, here's your generic basic hand, the hand for beginners kind of group is kind of what Bakuto seemed.
Yeah, I guess.
Hey, you know how to karate chop some wood. You want to come work for us for a little bit? We'll get you a college degree and pay for your tuition if you come, try to take down Danny Rand for us for a little bit. That's really what we're going for here. But then, you have Gal's, she was more of the secret heroine thing, but she also said in the 17th century she spent a lot of it being tortured. So maybe she's more than what she appears to be, or has been brought back to life or cannot die, kind of like Harold Meacham. He didn't age once he was brought back to life. I don't know, but there are a lot of things, and they may be building that towards, like I said, a lot of people assumed the series Shadowland, which saw Luke Cage and Iron Fist and Daredevil, work on Daredevil was possessed by a hand demon to break it down. So it's very, very different, very weird. So I don't know how they're going to handle it. To me, it didn't matter too much because by that point they'd already watered down the Iron Fist. He knocked down a door to a hospital, and one of the coolest things he did was hit the floor in the corporate house or the corporate building and blew up everything. But that's like the second episode and the last episode. So he didn't really use his fist as much as we wanted to. So it was very watered down to begin with. So when they were throwing like these these are just kind of generic soldiers, like not the Daredevil's hand. We have to tell you these aren't Daredevil hand members. Like they had to break it down for us.
And sometimes it wasn't the hand. Sometimes it was those Hatchet Gang people. And I guess sometimes it was like the DEA because it was people in military gear. So you could never really keep track of who we were supposed to be fighting as the heroes. So, yeah, that didn't really make any sense.
Because the one hand that broke in to the dojo whenever they had Gal looked like police, like riot gear. It didn't even look like hand.
Mm-hmm.
Or ninjas.
It didn't make any sense. I mean, so I guess we don't have to really belabor the point anymore. We obviously didn't like the show. I mean, I have like a ton of notes here. I'm not going to go through them all, but I mean, there was like a couple little quick fire things real quick. I thought it was weird that they pretty much ripped off the music from Stranger Things, and they also combined it with like Eastern music too.
How forgettable is that introduction? How forgettable was that?
I'm so glad they added the skip button because I skipped it every time.
Oh, do they have a skip button now?
Yeah, well, at least on the browser version. I'm not too sure if you're watching like through an Apple TV or another device like Xbox. But
I specifically upgraded to the 4K version of Netflix to watch this show. Right? I got nothing out of 4K on this one. I could have watched it regular. Talk about regret.
You probably could have. So, yeah, they kind of ripped off that Stranger Things vibe, which I thought they probably just did because, wasn't that music in Stranger Things cool? I don't really thought it fit the show literally at all. And I don't know if Danny Rand's character in the comic books likes hip-hop music, but apparently he likes hip-hop music in this show, and I think that's literally just because the soundtrack in Luke Cage is popular, so they just ripped that off too. Those were two things that really annoyed me. But I don't know. I mean, obviously I think people can tell by now that we didn't like the show. So, Chris, is there any way you think you can sum this up?
Yeah, Iron Fist is not a show for anyone who wants what they've seen on these previous Netflix shows. However, you're going to have to watch it if you want to watch The Defenders. So you might as well suck it up and take it one at a time, because trying to chug this, this is a double shot of a Netflix show, and you're probably going to throw up if you try to do it all at once. So,
yeah, it's going to be that bottom shelf stuff that's sold in a plastic jug.
Yeah, this is going to leave an aftertaste in your mouth. Now, give me a week or two, it's forgettable. It's forgettable is what it is. It didn't offend me. That's my rating system. Did it offend me? No, I'm not mad at the show. I'm just disappointed in it. And that's kind of like a theme in the show itself. The son couldn't live up to the father kind of thing. But I felt like, there was so much potential and so much opportunity just squandered here, on the eve of The Defenders coming out later this year.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of when you watch this show is you just start thinking about the future. There's so many future questions here. First of all, do you want to see a second season of Iron Fist? A lot of people would probably say, if you didn't like the show, no, I don't want to see more. Hey, but maybe if they brought in a competent showrunner, writers, and directors, maybe we could actually get a good telling of Iron Fist and maybe make up for the crap that we got. Because I still think he's a cool character that I'd like to see more of. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of another thing that you think about in the future. You think about, what's going to happen to the Defenders? Hopefully none of this leaks over into that show, because I know I've been looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to that perfect 8-episode count. There's not going to be any filler. It's just going to be awesome action all the time. These people meeting, I really want to see more Daredevil, because I love that show. Season 1 and 2 are really great, so this is almost going to kind of be like a third season of Daredevil in my mind, coming a little bit sooner, so I'm really looking forward to that. But Chris, I was thinking about you the whole time once I figured out who this showrunner was and what he's doing next.
Yeah, so, I mean, to me, I'm not honestly too worried, because, again, Inhumans is Scott Buck's next show, and it's 8 episodes as well. He has to answer not only to Marvel Entertainment, but he has to answer not to Netflix, but to ABC and IMAX. So hopefully that helps out. But the show feels rushed. Like they had to get this show out before the Defenders, and maybe that might be some of the problem as well. Like we have to get Iron Fist out. We don't know what we're going to do with him, but we got to get it out. Because remember, we worried forever that we didn't hear anything on the show.
Yeah, that's true. We kept waiting for like a casting announcement, for some sort of when it was going to shoot, when it was going to come out. And it wasn't officially announced for a long time. And we knew it was coming, but we never got kind of like the official stamp of approval. Iron Fist is ready to go and signed off on. So yeah, maybe that was. I would love to see what happens as kind of time goes on. We start to hear news from the inside of the production, maybe get a little bit more secrets leaking out. But yeah, I'd really like to know what went wrong. But I mean, a lot of people out there say it makes a lot of sense. What did you say? His name was Scott Buck? Is that what his name?
Scott Buck, I believe, is the showrunner.
And I believe the last notable thing he did was the last half of Dexter, which basically ruined a really awesome show. But that could have been Showtime's problem for extending it further than it needed to be. But
he started on Dexter in like 2007.
Yeah, but I believe he was in charge of like the last couple seasons, which are pretty much panned by all of the fans of the show. They hate it. So I don't know if this guy just can't find his sweet spot. Maybe in the past he's done something that impressed people, because I mean he keeps getting work. I mean, come on, Iron Fist and Inhumans before his show even came out. So I don't know, man. But we ain't happy over here at Superhero Slate.
Yeah, at the end of the day, again, I'm not mad either. Like this could be much worse. Like this could have been much worse. But when you have the other 4 season series to compare it to, it is easily the bottom of the barrel. And I would like to hear someone try to argue that with us. Like, if you feel differently about the show, do let us know. And what did you see in it that I guess we're missing? Because I can forgive lots of stuff. I can sit through a Transformers movie and not feel as bad as I did with this. So sometimes, but yeah, I mean, no, that's it. I guess it's time to get on to the regular episode, Mike. But do you have anything you want to add at the end of this?
No, I mean, I don't think I can. It would just be belaboring points that I've already brought up. But I mean, it's the first time I ever took like. I think there's over like 30 bullet points here about things I didn't like on this show. So,
well, funny enough, last March we were complaining about another comic book property in tandem.
That's true. I guess March is just a sore spot for us right now.
Yeah, March is bad. I just want something happy. I know that sounds weird, but I want something fun and happy, because after this and Logan, like, good lord, can Guardians get here soon enough? Like, give me something happy.
Yeah, to be clear, we enjoyed Logan, but it was just sad.
Yeah, like, it's just, I need a happy show. Give me a happy show, people. You're
just gonna have to go rewatch Lego Batman because that was fun.
I did. I downloaded a copy and watched it on Friday night. So there we go.
Good on you.
Yeah. So all right. Well, Mike, if people want to see what else you're up to, where can they find you at?
Well, they can follow me at Mike Royer Design on Twitter and Instagram, and you can read my webcomics at pickledcomics.com. Chris, if people want to follow you, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Valdan, Valdan. I have an Iron Fist pop. Maybe I'll take a picture of him. Maybe I'll beat him up. I don't know. That's how I feel. But he has a glowing orange fist, which is more than can be said for the guy in this show sometimes. Or you can read my stuff on Comic UI. And yeah, so I'm everywhere right now. I got too many to list. It doesn't matter. This is someone's first Superhero Slate spoiler cast, Mike. Can you tell them what else we do and where they can find us?
Yes, as always, as I say at the end of every show, please visit superheroslate.com. That is the best place to find all the avenues we host a show and our show notes. So if you ever want to see some of the stuff that we're talking about, if we ever mention any links or images, usually we always throw those up in the show notes, and you get that there. So you can find us and subscribe on iTunes, YouTube, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Tumblr. You can get us right in your email inbox by subscribing with your email address, and you can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, and you can pick up some Superhero Slate merch like t-shirts and mugs and I think even like mouse pads over at superheroslate.com/store. If you're a fan of the show, please consider leaving us a review, dropping us a like or a comment wherever you are consuming the show. We really like that. We like seeing the feedback. And if you're a super fan of the show, all you got to do is share the show with a friend, share the show with a buddy, and we will be here every week laying down the latest superhero news and talking about the latest superhero spoiler casts. So there you go. That's the show.
We made it. We finally got through it. We got through this just like we got through Iron Fist, Mike, so we made it.
Yep. That's
so,
right.
I guess now it's time to kick it on over, and we're going to go record our regular news episode for the week. So subscribe, and that'll show up right in your, feed. Is that what they're called? Feed as well.
Yeah,
so.
they're feeds, Chris. You got it right.
Yeah, go us. So we'll catch you next week.
All right, bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe.
Everybody was kung fu fighting.